Hello, welcome to Pebblebrook Village. I'm Peony, and this is the month ahead Trashfire Tarot for May 2026. Some quick news for this month. Pebblebrook Village is excited to introduce its first and newest villager. Well, not first, I guess I'd be counted as the first, right? But anyways, our newest villager, Patricia Scibek, PS Oracle on the socials. She will be providing monthly meditations to complement the month ahead forecasts. She is a very talented oracle, and I will have her socials and website posted in the show notes and any subsequent social media post I make of this episode. Please give her a follow. The past life reading she did for me was amazing and helped me face some things that I had been working through in my life. She is someone I would consider a mentor just as much as a friend, and she is embarking on a journey, new journey herself of travel and moving. So please keep her in your thoughts and support her in any way you might be able to. Second, I am looking for other contributors or villagers in the context of Pebblebrook Village. It was always meant to be a hub to connect people to a diverse community of unique voices within a spiritual space. If you have something you would like to contribute, be it blogs, a podcast, being a guest, co-hosting a class or webinar, or anything that, I didn't just ramble off. If you have any ideas or would like to contribute and work with me, please reach out and let's chat. Lastly, there is a website in development. As I mentioned, Pebblebrook Village is meant to be a hub. As such, there will be a villager section dedicated to all contributors, a space to promote them and their services, so people can get access to different types of practices within this space. There's a whole array of how people approach, whether it's divination or astrology, herbalism, I mean anything. And that is the beauty of this, is that there is not one right way. It truly does take a village. Um, it will also have the most recent Trashfire Tarot episodes embedded along with the meditation for that month, so they're easily accessible. And I will be opening up time for readings. I will have several options for tarot and oracle readings, with the option of including birth charts and transits as well. Finally, there will be a Patreon Ask option that will include a physical copy of my monthly astrology transit themed playlist. It will be a CD. Still working out the details for that, but same concept as Patreon. Um, Donating a certain amount, paying a certain amount a month, will get you access to different levels of engagement and options. Oh, right. I am bad at marketing myself, so let's just dive into it. First, for May, we have in the ship navigator position, the first position, we have the Five of Cups. So this is an emotional journey that we're going on, that we're being asked to go on for the month of May. It is more of a submarine this month than it is a traditional ship. Think 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or Hunt for Red October. This is the first decan of Scorpio, so very Plutonian, with themes of power struggle, resources, and transformation. There will be loss on this journey. There will be grief, and this is the start of something new through that. You will be leaving something behind. It's important to acknowledge it. And as we embark into the murky depths in our Plutonian submarine, we give that final wave goodbye. And when the time is right, we will be able to look past our loss And this card is here to remind us that when the tears dry and we look off into the other direction, there is endless potential awaiting us. It's important to, sit with that grief. It's important to not hold it in and avoid feeling it. And it's just as important not to linger in it and let it consume us. To accept that loss is part of life. And there's no script or time frame that is right in how you grieve that loss. And eventually we release that grief and we move on. And that's what the Five of Cups is about, is that looking behind you one last time, being proud of where you're at, and moving forward. Next, we have in the sextant position, which is a tool or tip that we take with us on this journey, we have the Ten of Pentacles. This is completion, not forever, not in perpetuity, but we are completing something very important within this emotional journey that May is sending us on. The first and last cards in this context, your navigator and distant shore, kind of like point A to point B, they are this container, and everything else is within the container of that journey, that vessel, the submarine, in the case for us in May. So on our way to our destination, we are completing something. We are checking things off. This is the third decan of Virgo. So we are analyzing and improving. We are a success in progress, and we are leaving the idea of perfection behind. Seriously, I want you, as you're listening to this, to stop and say that out loud. We are leaving the idea of perfection behind. That is going to be our mantra for the month. Anytime that you're being overcritical or you don't feel that where you're supposed to be, I want you to just say that to yourself. We are leaving the idea of perfection behind. You are where you need to be in this moment. Be present and live in the moment. Because when we stop being so hard on ourselves, and maybe that's the what the Five of Cups is nudging us to grieve and leave behind, life starts to feel just a bit more manageable, a bit more light. And the Ten of Pentacles is signifying a time of abundance, of fulfillment. It's happiness. And maybe life is not going the way you had planned, but what about it right now can you celebrate and lean into more to add some whimsy back, with the darkness and the anxiety? And I know it's hard in the reality that we exist in, but also remove money from the equation. And what do you want? What makes you feel secure and supported? And lean more into that and remind yourself that you contain a wealth of abundance. You are strong enough to handle any hiccups or mishaps. All right. Now for the stars, and we start with the evening star. For this position, this is something that is fading as we move along through this journey. And up first with that position, we have the Page of Swords. This is someone who is idealistic and curious, and can be so in a dogmatic way, and prone to escapism, prone to detaching from reality to experience this perpetual state of nostalgia. It's young energy. Could be a new relationship, a new job. It could be a project that you just started. Maybe you're being too hard on yourself for being inexperienced. Maybe you're comparing yourself to others too much and projecting your insecurities. We are being told not to be afraid of taking risks, of making mistakes. Curiosity is an amazing sword to carry, but we have to wield it with grace and intention. Move forward with curiosity, but release the need for perfection, for control, and see where that takes you. All right, so in our next position, the North Star, this is our guiding star, our moral compass, and we have the Nine of Cups. Remember that you are complete. You are genuinely a success in progress, not a work in progress. There will always be work, always, always, always. And remember that life is not a straight line. It's the world and the wheel of fortune. It's beginnings and endings, sometimes in the blink of an eye. It's perpetual motion. Remember to be honest and check in with yourself. Rest when you need to. The work internally and other will always be there. It's not a game you win. It's how you flow with life. It's not something that we complete. It is in perpetuity, and we just flow with it and try to ease into it and surrender a bit. Be grateful for what you have, and don't be afraid to dream big. And okay, so last of the stars, we have the morning star before we reach the distant shore. And this is something that hasn't yet been realized. Maybe it's something that's percolating, deep within us as we go on this subterranean journey this month. And we have the Queen of Swords. This, is something we're stepping into. And this is an intelligent, balanced, and equitable individual. They are not afraid to be disruptive by speaking their mind, especially when it comes to advocating for causes that they took up when the Ace of Swords presented them with it. They have completed the journey of the Wands and the Cups, and they realize the spark inside of them, and they want to move it outward and create. The page fades into the Queen when we genuinely acknowledge our own abundance. Be honest with yourself about your doubts. Thread that curiosity into your everyday life, and instead of being reactive, getting angry, sit with your discernment and approach the uncertainty with curiosity. Question it without judgment. This card is a reminder that you have what you need to make clearer decisions. And, go from there. All right. Now we're at the distant shore. We have the Six of Pentacles. We start in Scorpio and end on the opposite side of that axis with the second decan of Taurus. More on that in a bit. This is us waking up, coming out of the depths of the ocean in our submarine and seeing land for the first time in what seems like decades, a long time. When you submerge like that, it can distort time. And the land we see when we come up is the clarity we have received from this journey. We are holding too much too close to our chests. We have been overworked, underpaid, and we're subsequently afraid of loss. And there is this scarcity mindset that is dwelling deep inside of us, this false modality that we can only rely on ourselves, that we should only rely on ourselves. And this journey is about finding balance and revisiting what security really means to us, right? We are both the giver and the beggar. We will always need help just as much as there is something we can always offer others, no matter how small. And we must not attach ourselves so stubbornly to material things. Ask what you can spare and remind yourself that there is room for all at the table. Like if, you're setting the table for 8 people and you're 2 or 1, what can you do differently to help others that can't even set that table for 1 person, much less 8? Where is there an excess that we can focus more into a community rather than hoarding out of this fear of scarcity. Um, because there is room for everyone at the table. And uh, we need to really, really start believing that as we go forward. All right. So we start our journey in Scorpio. We end our journey in Taurus, specifically the second decan of Taurus, which is where that full moon in Scorpio is going to be. And I want to use this time to kind of go into that a little bit and some other signatures and some discussion around them. It's easy to get lost in the research. It's very easy to get lost in the patterns. It's very easy to not see the forest through the trees sometimes with what we do. And it can come across reductive, not intentional, but it can come across as reductive and leaning into pessimism and this sort of doom and gloom. This full moon is happening on May 1st, which is May Day. It's happening on Beltane. And those are things that always happen. The full moon in Scorpio during Taurus season, that is something that always happens. What is happening around it, makes it unique this year. But the moon functions in cycles and it goes through these cycles every year, and we experience them every year. It's not something to fear. Even when they make, tough aspects like, squares or oppositions, it's not something to be afraid of. It can sometimes signify that this is going to be challenging emotionally or in other ways. And that's all it is. It's challenging. It's not world ending. It's not life ending. It's not even necessarily monumental. I think this moon, it's happening at the beginning of May, which coincides with the, when this episode is released, it will be releasing on that day. And I think there is some energy, to work with and take with as we move forward to this month, as we move forward to the new moon in the next cycle, as the moon goes on. But it's important to realize that this isn't, you know, a day to fear. And I think especially this really hit me. Every night I go out and I, spend some time with the stars. I spend some time with the moon. I say good night. Um, and I really, yeah, it's just about spending time, right? And a few times recently, it's been very overcast. It's been very stormy where I'm at. So even at night, stars are hidden under blankets of dark clouds. The moon is hidden. Um, it's submerged, sort of like the journey that we're going on, right? And kind of, a very Neptunian way more so than Plutonian necessarily, with clouds and weather, but still Plutonian themes. This like beacon of light during the dark times, during the night, being submerged behind clouds. But every night when I would go out and say goodnight to her, several times, like the clouds would just move just enough for her to peek out. And it doesn't matter if the moon is void of course. It doesn't matter if it's in Scorpio or, where she is still the moon and she is still beautiful. And when I say it doesn't matter, obviously, yes, like we do this because like there is significance of something being in Scorpio versus something being in, Capricorn or Libra or whatever. And it's not that it doesn't mean anything, but there's so much nuance and it's cycles. And no matter what, even if it is a period of difficult difficulties in like emotions or thought patterns, or it's forcing you to face some uncomfortable things. In the end, it is just pushing you further along your journey. And it needs you to step outside of your comfort zone, and that's okay. But the moon will always be there. It'll always go through these cycles, and it will be beautiful throughout all of them, no matter, what position or sign that it's in. And that's the same with all the stuff that we've experienced recently. And when I hear things that, like, there's no good astrological signatures for the rest of the year, um, I can't help but feel that there's just some projection going into that. And again, I think it's like when it's forced through the trees and it's being embedded in pattern research and that sort of stuff. And we see stuff and there's this aha moments, and we're excited about it, and that is genuinely awesome. I get it, but I think we have to be careful in not putting too much of our own personal emotions into what those signatures mean. Because it's on a personal level, it differs from person to person based off of their chart, and like so many microcosms that make up the individual. And even from a mundane, like what are we talking about? What perspective do we have? Is it Western? Is it white leaning? Is it, yeah, United States centric? So of course, if that's where you're at, it's going to be. But I think we need to be more mindful of that when we use words that can come across as buzzwords like disruption and collapse. Like, what do you mean by collapse? What is collapsing? Like, Neptune is urging us towards collectivism within the fires of Mars, which is dissolving these illusions. So there are collapses. It is fires being set to these old ways, and some throughout some of April that was quite literal. But like, and these illusions are fading, and it's exposing the man behind the curtain. But these things that are collapsing when we talk about these structures that are being held up to the flame of Aries, um, prior to and even still so by Saturn and Neptune for a while, even after Mars and Mercury finally make their way out of there. But what's collapsing are these structures that are violent and oppressive. And I think a certain privileged group of individuals are feeling it in a way that they may have been shielded from over the last decades to, I mean, well, centuries really. But humanity is not collapsing. And that's not what these signatures mean. And so I don't think that we can sit here and say that like there's no good signatures for the rest of the year. I think that is very much perspective. And I think the disruption that has happened and the collapse that we are experiencing and feeling is much needed, and it's leading to better things. It's like the Tower or even the Death card, where like there are these cycles of death and rebirth. Some things have to end for new things to begin. And rather than living in fear of change that we can't control, that we are living through, what can we do to find more solidarity, more community, more strength as we pivot with these changes that are coming? Um, so it's something within the theme of the full moon that I wanted to talk about. Um, and kind of going further now into the full moon, this starts in the depths of our emotional subterranean in the Scorpio deck, in this journey that May is taking us on. And we end in the Taurus deck, in the second decan specifically, where that full moon is going to be. This is trudging through eighth house themes and calling out needless power struggles. This is death and rebirth, like I've mentioned. It is transformation. It's about taking the information and spark we receive during Aries season and really meditating with it and understanding our purpose. It is an emotional spring cleaning. So when we come back up for air, we see things in a slightly different light. So we feel less chained to our past and our grief and systems that we are forced into that are impacting us in negative ways. Where do we have control in our lives, and how can we lean more into that, and how do we do it in a way that includes everyone without sacrificing yourself? Before I move on to more about Taurus and Scorpio, and from a mundane aspect, I just want to quote a song by Aurora, The Seed. When the last tree has fallen and the rivers are poisoned, you cannot eat money. And that is very much the vibe I get for May. That is very much this Scorpio Taurus axis. That is where, Uranus went through. That is where Venus came through, and comforted Uranus as Uranus was moving into Gemini. But that Scorpio Taurus axis has been getting a lot of attention. And, from the Taurus aspect, it doesn't matter, how much money you have. It doesn't matter how dig you deep and extract. Um, when nothing is there, there's nothing to experience anymore. And we need to be mindful of that. Um, all right. So from a mundane perspective, Scorpio is representative of transformation, death, covert power. It's ruled by Mars, and Pluto in modern. I am a modern girly, um, but ruled by Mars and Pluto. It governs secrets, finances, especially taxes and debts, deep resources, and public upheaval. And it can often signal intense changes, environmental crises involving, water or oil, deep structural transformations in society. From the Mars aspect, there is conflict, not necessarily war. I mean, right now with what we're seeing with oil and resources and that Martian nature, it is war like, but just conflict or difficulty around those things. And then by contrast, Taurus in mundane astrology is associated with economics, agriculture, natural resources, land, and the banking sector. It represents stability, it's food security, that scarcity stuff we talked to kind of like is the entire axis, right? There's similarities, two sides of the same coin. It's also material wealth, and its influence often highlighting issues related to infrastructure, stock market, currency, and environmental resources. It's again, I think this full moon is very timely in those themes that it is trudging up from the time that Uranus spent in Taurus, right? Um, we end this navigation. We started with the Five of Cups, and we end with the Six of Pentacles, the second decan of Taurus, where the full moon is taking place. That's today, the day that this is released, May 1st. I'm recording this in the past, but for the sake of this, today, when you're listening to this, or maybe it just happened if you're listening past the 1st of May. But this is leaders versus the people. The people and land being represented by the moon, and the leaders are controlling and destroying the world's resources, and we feel powerless about it. We likely feel scared about what that means. It's a moment of reflection, over Uranus and Taurus for the last 7 years, and what happened in your life that felt disruptive. How did it bring about change or make you look at things from a different perspective? And if you haven't really considered that, maybe this full moon is the time to do that. Maybe that is the bit of discomfort that you're being urged to sit in. Like, where can you find positive in the disruption? Maybe your life didn't go the way that you had planned it, but how has it changed in a positive way? How has some of those disruptions pushed you and led you to things that you never would have gotten to, without kind of like that strong wind coming in and blowing you off course a bit? But, the sun is leaders, the moon is us. This is a moment of us versus leaders. Not necessarily a conflict, and not saying that like Friday is going to be like any type of confrontation, but just from a collective perspective of the energies that are out there and what the moon versus the sun represent. And it's not like the sun isn't representative of just the leaders that we don't like. It's not it's not representative of the leaders solely that we like. The moon doesn't represent only the people we like. It represents the people we hate just as much. Okay? Democratic leadership will not focus on impeaching if they secure a majority in midterms. Leadership, right? The Democrats won't hold anyone accountable. I mean, and obviously the GOP hasn't in the time that they've controlled basically, all aspects of government. And there's all this push and energy about we need this blue wave in November. Vote blue always. You're a terrible person if you don't vote blue. And we need this blue wave in November. And people say that because we want to get rid of certain people. Certain people we need to be rid of them. Right. But when the leadership of the elected officials are saying they're not going to do that, not for the illegal war in Iran, not for the crimes perpetrated by this Epstein class. It's been all this clamor of we need to change the color of the team. We need to go from red to blue because that'll solve this. And they're telling you right now, no, we're not interested in that. We need to be ready to understand that there is one party and Democrats are merely the HR wing of a fascist government. And I know this is going to make people angry. And it should. Shouldn't be angry at me. Shouldn't be angry at the people that point this out, share this opinion. You should be angry. What is the purpose of this blue wave to if we're not going to get rid of the people that we are blaming for the situation that we are in right now? The sun is leadership. The sun is all leadership. And they are all protecting one another. They are all complicit from, decades, beyond decades. From Bush to Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump again. It's been the same cycle, right? Obama didn't seek punishments for the Bush administration's war crimes because we needed to focus on healing. Biden came in after Trump, did the same thing. We need to focus on healing. And the Bush administration used 9/11 to start the Patriot Act, which, was not great. And then Obama dug our heels and even more, and also developed ICE into what it is now. The right blamed the Democrats for all the problems, and the Democrats blamed the left while finding ways to work with fascists. But, God's forbid we listen to the people that, want human rights for everybody. Let's work with the fascists instead, not the leftists, because, they're crazy. You know, um, Purity leftists is, what caused this, right? I hear that a lot. But I am not sorry that genocide is a deal breaker. And that shouldn't be a hot take. I'm not sorry that trans rights are human rights. And if you don't believe that, it's a deal breaker. That's not a hot take. That doesn't make me special or good, for acknowledging that all humans should have the same rights. And if you have to say things like trans rights are human rights, but just stop. I don't want to hear what's coming next because it's nonsense, and you need to sit with that and get to an understanding of why you feel the need to add that to that statement. What differs to you? Why can you say trans rights are human rights, but what is the case where trans rights aren't human rights? That's what that But when you're adding that to the end of that statement is implying there are times where you don't agree that they are human rights. These are the same people that, I hear saying really odd stuff like Trump makes me miss Bush. Why? They're both old white men that commit war crimes. Why is Bush and that administration any less guilty? I get the ferocity and fervor and just pace at which it's being done is so different in today in 2026. It's more in the open, right? It's more mask off. But why is Bush and that administration any less guilty of the war crimes that they committed? Because W paints pretty pictures now? It shows a disconnect from reality. I guess maybe brunch was less disrupted during the Bush years. But we have got to stop reducing one another to a shirt color or flag color that we're waving. We've got to stop being so binary. This isn't red versus blue. This isn't right versus wrong or yes or no. You're ignoring all, or win lose, I think is the better. Like it's not win lose. There's so much nuance. We are all being abused by the billionaires, the Epstein class, the slave traders, the patriarchy, whatever you want to call it. It is so bad that we are celebrating any loss the other team has. If you're upset about, MAGA running around and owning the libs, and then you turn around and laugh at someone for losing food stamps because of who they voted for, you're functioning on the same modality of win-lose. You're celebrating the hurt of a person. Nobody should be struggling to feed themselves. Not the person you hate, not anybody. And why would we celebrate things like that? Like celebrate people losing their farms because of who they voted for. And those are the farms that feed us. So that's an interesting hill to die on. And I understand wanting comeuppance. but we are pointing the sword at the wrong people, right? We are being very Page of Swords, and we are lacking the discernment of the Queen of Swords. We need to hold the elected officials, lobbyists, billionaires, etc., accountable for the policies that they are backing, not the people. And I'm sick of seeing Democrats bully people on the left because we aren't allowed to criticize players on our team. The amount of times I saw some variation around, I believe all women, but in response to, you know, accusations around sexual assault was disgusting just because it was towards a candidate that, wears a blue shirt. And I don't care how blue they are. If they have committed these atrocities, they should be held accountable. And saying things like, "Oh well, we're not holding this person accountable, so on that team, so why should we hold people on our team accountable?" Because they should all be held accountable if they've done evil things. That's like that's not the big brain moment that some people think that it is. That is lacking empathy, severely lacking of empathy, right? Um, Worshiping candidates that fight to not tax billionaires, candidates that throw the queer and trans community under the proverbial bus in favor of culling voters from, from the other side, like quote unquote being more normal. How can you just discard a community like that and expect one, them to vote for you, and two, even expect others to trust you? I do not trust anyone willing to do that. I don't care if your shirt is blue. You suck as a person. No one is free until everyone is free, and that includes people you hate. And I really need us all to sit with that this month. There's a quote before I go into the clarifying pool for this month and um, bring this to an end that's attributed to John Steinbeck, misattributed. Um, it's a paraphrasing of something that he had said, but regardless, it goes John Steinbeck once said that socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as an exploited proletariat, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Billionaires in the context of what we're talking. I'm sure Steinbeck didn't necessarily imagine that. And trillionaires, trillionaire in, one case. You are not part of the club. You will never be part of the club. Stop. It doesn't matter the job you have. It doesn't matter that you're white and have and think that you have privilege or have functioned under the modality of certain privileges, or you're special because of these ingrained white superiority and this very strictly human concept that have been implied like they are the law of the land. And like it's just some free pass that if you just suffer and make other people suffer alongside of you, that does not get you the meal ticket at the billionaire table. It doesn't. It gets you a exhausting, sad life, and then you die like all of us. We all die. And we could stand to be kinder to one another along the way, right? The color of skin that you're born with is not some socioeconomic determining factor. It's not. It doesn't mean that you are either this or that. It just is. It's part of our uniqueness. but it does not get you a seat at the billionaire table. All right, let's do clarifying poll for this month. Okay. Oh, I love this. Now, the Ten of Swords. This is beautiful. And that's not facetious. That's not sarcastic. It is. It just ties everything together very neatly. 10 is an ending. It is a horrific image to look at, right? This person strewn out on the floor with all those swords in them. But it is a cycle of grief and toxicity that is ending because it is a 10. This isn't, it's going to be over. And like I said at the beginning of this, starting with the Five of Cups, we're going on an emotional journey, right? And part of that emotional journey is releasing things that are holding you back, releasing things that are making you feel heavy and depressed. And there is no time frame on grief that is right or wrong. We all do it in our own way, and that's fine. But just as the moon goes through cycles, so do we. And this grief, this heaviness, this loss, it's not forever. It's just a moment, and we will get through it. And there's an end to it if we really sit and listen to what is going on around us as we go through this month. Really stay focused on that emotional journey. Stay in tune with yourself, check in with yourself. Um, and there's a reason that this is happening, and it's important to, especially with swords being about thoughts and communication, it's air signs. So, why? Why are there things that make you uncomfortable or angry? It's not about feeling ashamed about it. Anger, discomfort, they're feelings, they're valid feelings, they're important feelings. Can be warnings sometimes, can be indicators to reconsider things. So it's not about being ashamed that you're angry or ashamed that you're uncomfortable. Feel that. Allow yourself to feel it. Swords are thoughts. Swords are logic. Sometimes logic void of emotion. This is like, why are feeling this way? It's okay that you're feeling this way. Don't intellectualize feeling a certain way, but what triggered it? What can you do to help release it and find that ending? And that is where we are going in May. And I think that is beautiful. All right. So in closing, please, please, please give Patricia Scibek, PS Oracle, a follow. Please listen to the meditation she prepared for the month of May that coincides with this month ahead reading. Please take care of yourselves. All right. I love you all, and I will see you on Monday with the first week ahead for the month of May. Bye.